Hey guys, Otaku here, back with another deck profile video. Today we are going to be doing Runic Plunder Adventure. It's a mouthful, and it's a 48 card deck, and I'm not going to waste y'all's time. We're going to just jump right into it. So real quick, just to start, did play this at locals this weekend, and I placed first. I faced off against stuff like the new Vanquish Souls. They were playing Vanquish Souls Runic. I was going against Live Twin Sprite Runic. And I also played against Blackwing and Mannadium Scareclaw. Yeah, this deck performed very well. I got 3 wins and a tie. So needless to say, this deck pops off, especially if you play a lot more reserved instead of aggressive. So to start, we're gonna start with the Runic engine. Of course, we run the 2 Fountain, which the card's semi-limited, but everyone was only running 2 to begin with. 3 Runic Tip, 3 Freezing Curses, 3 Flashing Fire, 3 Destruction, 3 Slumber, 2 Dispelling, and 1 Smithing Storm. So, as I said, Fountain has been semi-limited, but realistically you only need 2 to begin with. Tip is your best card in the deck, basically, searching out all your Runic cards, and helps you adapt to the situation if you don't have the right card in hand. Freezing Curses, just really good for the, it's basically just an imperm in your hand. Flashing Fire for the pop, Destruction for the pop. Dispelling is, Dispelling came in clutch this past weekend. Was able to activate it when my opponent had 1 card in hand. Like, they searched that 1 card, activated Dispelling, made them discard it, and then they still had no cards in hand. Just Dispelling can really just come in clutch, making them discard. And then Smithing Storm is arguably like the worst, the weaker of the cards in the deck, making it so basically you can only banish the amount of cards your opponent controls. So 9 times out of 10, if I see Smithing Storm in my opening hand, it's being used to summon out Hugin or one of the other Runic monsters. Moving on to the Plunder part of the deck, we run 3 Whitebeard, 2 Golden Hair, 2 Redbeard, 2 Bluebeard, 2 Black Eyes, and 1 of the Plunder Patrol Shipyard. Whitebeard is your best monster in the deck. He's used to search out all the other Plunder monsters, so of course we're going to be running 3 of him. As for the rest of them, you can run Golden Hair at 3. She's also incredibly good, giving you that discard power to get your Plunders in the graveyard to activate their graveyard effects. I personally only need her at 1. But we still want to have a plethora of tuners, so like I said, Whitebeard at 3, and if you want her at 3 as well, that can work. Redbeard is one of your slower cards, however, this deck is designed to be slow, so Redbeard's a lot more safer. If this was a more aggressive build of Runic without the, or sorry, if this was more aggressive build of Plunder, then we didn't have the Runic cards, I'd only be running Redbeard at 1, but since this is a more slow build, Redbeard is perfectly fine at 2. Bluebeard, he's a little more of a gamble. If you don't have cards that you willingly want to discard, you obviously don't really want to see him in your hand. But having him be able to special summon himself, be a free body off of the ability of having Plunders on the board, very strong. Black Eyes, one of your best cards, best Plunder cards, because he's able to recycle resources, summon himself in the process. However, you don't really ever want to see him in your opening hand. You want to search him off of something, or just draw him via like the Runic engine. Shipyard, we only run it at 1. You can run it at 2. I personally just find I brick on it too much with having it at 2. Now that sounds crazy, breaking on Shipyard when it's such an incredibly good card, being able to discard your Plunders and draw and search Plunders. But since we're running the Runic engine in the deck, we're primarily focusing on having Runic Fountain on the board. We don't really want to get Runic Fountain off our board. So Shipyard is there to make bad hands better, and just primarily focusing on getting the Runic cards, or getting the Runic engine going so we can start stuff. So Shipyard, we only really have at 1. It's a free discard if we don't need it. Or we can just use it to make our board better, because we do run 2 Fountains, so we can summon out Gary to get Fountain out of the graveyard. So there is utility having the 1, but I don't think we really need it at 2. Also, it is searchable off of Mowork and Lyce's effects, so I just don't think we really need the second one. But you can run 2. I just wouldn't recommend running 3 in this deck. As for the adventure cards, you've seen this before in GOTY. We have 3 Water Enchantress, 1 Griffin, 1 Dracoback, 1 Fateful Adventure, and 1 Rite of Aramasir. I would be running 3 or a minimum of 2 if I could, but I currently only have 1 Rite of Aramasir, and it's still expensive before the reprint. So I only run the 1. However, realistically, in this deck specifically, the 1 is honestly enough. You have a lot of ways of searching it, mainly off of Water Enchantress, and then or you can just draw it off the Runic engine. So it is by no means bad to only be running 1, just because Runic kind of carries the deck and stalls out, but the adventure package just gives you another Omni Negate on board, and just more of a presence, especially being able to bounce cards with Dracoback. So realistically, you don't even need the adventure engine. I just think it gives the deck a lot of what it doesn't have, primarily that Omni Negate. Runic and Plunder do not have spell and trap card negation, which is really hindering when we're in a meta that has Branded in existence. Being able to negate the Branded Fusion is incredibly powerful, and just realistically, being able to negate spell and traps in general is very powerful. We have a couple of monster negates, having Freezing Curses negating monster effects, and of course, having Lice being able to negate monster effects, but we have no spell and trap negation, and I think that's incredibly important. So having the Omni Negate off of the Wandering Griffin is just incredibly powerful and very much a necessity. As for the rest of the deck, with none of the engine cards from any of the like core decks, we have 2 Ash Blossoms, 2 Ghost Ogres, 3 Lava Golems, and 2 Rivalry of the Warlords. Ash Blossom just very strong, being able to interact with the most common interaction in all of Yu-Gi-Oh, which is searching or dumping cards in the graveyard or drawing. Having Ash there is just incredibly powerful. Also, it stops Branded Fusion, stops Branded basically in its tracks. Ghost Ogre, I think Ghost Ogre is just very good this format. We're seeing Vanquished Souls come into the format, and Vanquished Souls is just very strong. And Ghost Ogre can counter the Caesar before he is unaffected by card effects, but also Ghost Ogre can pop all of the other ones off the board the moment they activate their card effects. But also, you can activate Ghost Ogre against Cash. Just Ghost Ogre, I think, is just very strong in this format. You can run 3. I only run 2, but the 2 is perfectly fine. Lava Golem. Everyone's summoning more than 1 monster. Everyone's summoning at least 2 monsters. It's very rare you're not going to be using Lava Golem. Lava Golem's a bit of a risk because we do like to normal summon our Plunder monsters, but it's not a necessity. But the amount of times Lava Golem came in clutch this past weekend, my Blackwing opponent summoned out Assault Dragon, Blackwing Assault Dragon, and then regular Blackwing Dragon. I just hit him with Lava Golem. He wasn't ticking me for damage or anything. And then I also used it on the opponent that was playing Vanquished Souls. Got all their stuff off the board, and then they couldn't use the spell card that's basically a Book of Moon. I can't think of it all of a sudden. And then Rivalry of the Warlords. I think this field spell is going to be a lot better in this upcoming format, especially against Vanquished Souls. Vanquished Souls are all different typings. But it hits a lot of other decks that run multiple typings, but Vanquished Souls is mainly the main target for this. But it doesn't hurt us a whole lot because all of the plunders are fiends. So it's just very good to be able to lock your opponent out while still being able to play. Of course, if we're using the Adventure Engine, we can't play the Adventure Engine under Warlords or under Rivalry. We also cannot play... we cannot coexist the Runic extra deck monsters with the plunders because there's fairies and then there are fiends. But also because we're running Lava Golems and as we'll see in the side deck, we're running Kaijus as well. Because we're running all that, we can, and also because Jord puts a token on the opponent's board, Rivalry can also just lock your opponent out entirely. If you summon out the token, the Kaiju, the Lava Golem, lock them into a typing they just don't have in the deck, you can just stall them out with Rivalry and just basically win the game from that point on. That didn't come up, unfortunately, but it has come up in plenty of practice games and stuff like that. So just very strong, being able to lock your opponent out with your own resources. Moving on to the extra deck. So for this past weekend, I was actually running on a bit of a handicap. I only have, I believe, 13 monsters in the extra deck currently. But I will tell you where I would fill in those spaces, of course. But this is primarily because of just what I don't own. So we're going to start with the Runics. We run 1 Hugin, 1 Gary, and 1 Munin or Munin. I would, of course, be running at least 1 more Hugin. Hugin is in the deck, of course, to search out your Fountain. Just incredibly powerful, being able to just summon it, search out Fountain, but also it prevents destruction. The amount of times that my opponent tried to like Harpy Feather Duster me, activated a Runic card to summon out Hugin, and then Hugin banishes herself right on the spot. The only issue with running the 1, of course, is since it's in the extra deck spot, if I want to summon out Blackbeard, I have to use it as a link material to summon out Blackbeard, so that immediately just scraps my one and only Hugin. So like I said, we'd be running at least 2 in the deck if I could. Jerry doesn't come up a lot, but we can use Jerry to get our Fountain out of the graveyard if our opponent manages to destroy it. And then also Jerry, if he's destroyed, he can destroy 1 card on your opponent's board, any card. And then Munin, I think, is just completely underrated. The amount of times I summoned Munin to just gain 1,000 life points and go for time. Or you just summon out Munin, lock them under Rivalry, so they can't do anything, and then while they're trying to find the out, you're just gaining life points. We don't use Munin's first effect, being able to acquire a continuous Runic spell card, because we don't run a Runic Allure. But that's also very powerful if you choose to run that. I personally just don't. But and then also Munin being able to negate the activation of a card targeting your Runic card. So if your opponent targets Fountain with like Cyclone or something, you can just activate Munin, negate the effect, and your Fountain is saved. As for Plunder, this is where the most of the extra deck space goes, because Plunder does lock yourself into Plunder, like most of the Plunder monsters. Goldenhair's Graveyard Effect, Whitebeard's Graveyard Effect, and Black Eyes' Special Summon Effect, all of them lock you into Plunder. So that's why 99% of the extra deck is Plunder. So we are running 2 Blackbeard, 2 Jord, 2 Moark, 2 Bran, 1 Lice, and 1 Adamancipator Risen Dragite. Obviously, that's not a Plunder card, but that's the last card in the extra deck. So Blackbeard, I would be running him at 3 if I could. I don't own another Blackbeard. I know he's cheap, so I intend to get one really soon. But 2 Blackbeard just quite frankly isn't enough. You need 3 for the long grind game, especially seeing as that's all Runic is the long grind game. But Blackbeard, he's another draw power card that in a deck with already a bunch of draw power. Jord allows you to recycle resources. You can run him at 1. I've found that in the long grind game that is Runic, having 2 on hand is just very strong. Also, if you are doing the mirror match with Runic, sometimes they pop him before he can activate his Pendulum effect. Moark, banish effect monster and search out the field spell. Bran, banish a spell and trap card, search out a monster, and Lice is our one and only monster negate in all of Plunder. So Lice is, and then also he searches just a Plunder card in general, whether you want to search the field spell or a monster. The issue with all of these is that they can all be ashed, because they all search or they draw, even Jord, unfortunately. But Jord, being able to summon out a token on your opponent's board and kind of just manipulate which of these you can summon, incredibly powerful. This was arguably like the best support we could have gotten for Plunder Patrol. And then the last card, Adamancipator Risen Dragite. This is primarily spell and trap card negation. All of our all we do is make level 8 tuners, or sorry, level 8 synchros, because all we have is level 4 tuners. So if we're somehow not locked into Plunder, we can summon this out. I only summon this if I'm going to be playing against Branded, just to have that free negation, because all the Plunders are water. So of course we're gonna have a water monster in the graveyard. So yeah, that's the extra deck. Like I said, we would run 1 more Blackbeard and 1 more Hugin. That would fill up the other 2 extra deck slots. We're gonna move on to the side deck. All right, so for the side deck, this is where things got a little tricky, because seeing as it is a 48 card deck, there are many times that you're just not going to see the cards you swap in. Those extra 8 cards in the deck make a massive difference. even in a deck that does nothing but draw. So there is a incredibly high chance you're just not going to see the cards you side in. So picking cards to side in was very difficult. But we just kind of went with a lot of generic stuff. So just to start, we're going for Bystial, one Bystial Mag and one Bystial Druis. They're just there for like stuff like Branded or Labyrinth, just to get stuff out of the graveyard, out of my opponent's graveyard and onto the field. So that's all they're really here for. Mag obviously searches Druis. Druis pops or sends something to the grave. So just very strong. But these are mainly just here to prevent like getting Puppet locked or like Raw Disciple locked from Branded. Even though that doesn't affect us a whole lot because we don't do a lot of summoning half the time. We're just kind of popping shit off our opponent's board, preventing our opponent from playing in general. But we summon out like the plunders and all that just to continue that up. So we just don't really want to get locked out. So that's what the Bystials are here for. We also run our Kaiju package, one Santa Claus, one Humongous, and one of Thunder King, the Lightning Strike Kaiju. We could run one Radiant, however, I feel like Santa Claus is better running with the Kaijus because you can Santa Claus and Kaiju your opponent on the same turn, whereas you can only Kaiju once because the moment you summon a Kaiju, you have to summon a Kaiju on your opponent on your board. So running Santa Claus and then the Kaijus is just very strong, but also the Kaijus really just let us manipulate our opponent's board. I actually just realized that Santa Claus is light, so we would actually replace this with a Radiant. But the fact of the matter is, we just use this to manipulate our opponent's boards so they have certain attributes, so we can summon out certain things with Blackbeard, Whitebeard, and Redbeard. Also, like I said, we can use these to lock our opponent out of their deck entirely with Rivalry of Warlords. But the idea is basically have one light, one earth, and then if we swap Radiant in from this, we'd have a dark. Just again, to expand our options if we can't summon out like Jord on the first turn and get a token and all that. I also then run two evenly matched, considered three, but couldn't fit it in the side deck, honestly. It's the best board breaker in the game. I wasn't running it a lot when Super Heavies were at full power because Super Heavies can negate it, and then there was just a bunch of other stuff that was making evenly matched a little less desirable, but now that the ban list has come out, evenly matched, in my opinion, is a lot more desirable again. Again, it's just the best board breaker in the game. And especially seeing as we don't get a battle phase anyways 9 times out of 10. We just go battle phase turn 1 and hit them with evenly matched. So our whole goal isn't even to do battle damage. So yeah, that's really the only reason. Like I said, you can run 3. I just couldn't fit it in my side deck, and we'll see why in a moment. But anyways, we're going to move on to the next card in the side deck. 3 Droll and Lockbird. This is a little controversial, a little difficult. A lot of people might be thinking, why are you running this in a deck that does nothing but drawing? You got to be careful when using this. I think Droll is still an incredibly valuable hand trap in this meta, even though Pearly has been nerfed into the ground until Duelist Nexus, and Super Heavy is not nearly as playable, but still very playable. I think Droll's just, even before Cyberstorm Axis came out, I think Droll is just an incredibly underrated hand trap. It stops a lot of decks like Runic. We can use it for the mirror match. And again, it just stops a lot of decks in their tracks. So 3 Droll and Lockbird, we just have to be very careful when we use it. Otherwise, we're going to lock ourselves out of drawing cards. So the whole goal is basically get our Runic stuff off immediately. So that we can get our draw power and then activate Droll on our opponent's next addition to their hand, and then they're locked out as well while we are sitting on probably like 4 or 5 cards. I also run 2 Ghost Belle. This is once again for the mirror match. So we run Ash as we saw in the main deck. Ghost Belle is also for the mirror match as well. Ghost Belle and Ash both stop Fountain because Fountain adds from graveyard to the deck, which procs Ghost Belle, but it also draws, which procs Ash. Ghost Belle is also for Sanctifier Dragon and Branded. I don't think a lot of people are going to respect Branded, and they're not going to respect Sanctifier, which is going to cause them to get Puppet locked or DD Orthos or Raw's Disciple. Just basically get locked in general, and I don't think enough people are going to respect that monster. So unlike me, who does run branded on the regular, I will be respecting the Sanctifier, and Ghost Spell is my answer. Obviously, if they have something like Mercurier in their hand, they're going to stop Ghost Spell, but this is mainly for the mirror match and for the branded matchup, but it could also be used for Vanquisher Souls, because the Rock Link spell, the Link monster, adds from graveyard to hand, and also I think special summons from graveyard, so Ghost Spell can stop both of those effects. And then as for the last card in our side deck, this is where the spice comes in, because I'm sure nobody else is running this in anything, and that is made to order Mermaid Outfitter. We run 3 of this. This is only for the mirror match. Runic is an incredibly powerful archetype. It is run as an engine for many, many, many decks, and it got off very easy on the ban list, only getting semi-limited on the Fountain, but again, everyone was only running 2 Fountain. And I think that for the mirror match, this card is incredibly powerful. If I activate this on my turn, I can banish out one of my opponent's Runic spell cards, because it can just it targets a card in your opponent's graveyard, banish it, and then add that same card with the same name from your deck to your hand. So this was designed specifically for mirror matches, or staples. So I can use this to add an Ash Blossom. I can use this to add any Runic spell card to my hand. This is incredibly strong, and I didn't get to use it, unfortunately, even though I faced 2 Runic players. I never saw it, but this card is very, very strong for the mirror match, but we can also, again, use it to search out Ash Blossom and any of our Runic spell cards if we're going against the mirror match. So this is the spice, and I hope I get the chance to actually use this in a mirror match, but we'll have to see. Alright, so we're going to move on to the test hand part of the video. I don't really know how good a test hand's going to be in this video in particular, because Runic doesn't do a lot of playing on its turn, if really ever. So, I mean, if we have a Plunder, primarily a Plunder hand, then yeah, we can do a good bit of playing on our opening hand here. But usually I actually go second with this deck because of stuff like Lava Golem and Evenly Matched, and also just, again, there's not a lot you can do on turn 1 with Runic, but I guess we'll just jump into it. Again, for a test hand, we're assuming we're going first, and we're assuming our opponent has 0 interruption in their opening hand. So let's see what we've got. So we got the 1, the 2, the 3, the 4, and the 5. So immediately we have access to our Runics, and we have Fateful Adventure to open us up with into the adventure package. So we would just go for activate Fateful Adventure, and we'll go for its effect to search a monster that mentions an adventure token, and then discard a card. We would just search for Water Enchantress, and we would, funny enough, we would actually, in this instance, we'd discard Bluebeard. We'd activate Bluebeard's effect to discard a card and draw a card, which is actually somewhat strong. Go Enchantress effect to search out the token. Or sorry, we'd search out Rite of Aramesir and use that to summon the token. Wherever it's at in the deck here. There it is. We, of course, activate the Rite of Aramesir, summon the token. We'll just use the card itself as an example. And then I would go into Flashing Fire to summon out the Hugin. And then we would activate Hugin by discarding a card for cost to search out Runic Fountain. Now, what I'm doing here is actually the greedy play. I probably shouldn't be doing Runic Fountain, seeing as I have no Runic cards in my hand currently, but it is what we're going to do. And then on Resolution, we'd go Whitebeard effect. Because Whitebeard was sent to the grave, we can special summon a Plunder card from the deck, and we are going to actually be special summoning Golden Hair. So since we do not have access to Griffin, because we've already activated the search from Fateful Adventure this turn, we're not going to get Draco back from the deck, because we're actually going to use the token as link material or synchro material. So we will actually end up synchro summoning here to summon out the Jord. And then we will go Jord effect to target the Bluebeard Engrave, add it back to hand, and then Jord will go to the Pendulum Zone. We'll activate Jord's Pendulum effect. He'll summon a Plunder token to the both boards by the attribute in which we declare. In this instance, we will actually declare a light, because we have no way to manipulate them to have light, and light is our monster effect negate. So summon the token, and then Jord would go back into the extra deck, but we're going to use him as an example for the token. We will then have to link summon, unfortunately getting rid of our only Hugin, to summon out Blackbeard. We'll then go Blackbeard effect for to summon out Lice. And we'd go in defense mode, seeing as we play the defensive with this deck, and then Blackbeard will draw us a card. So let's just real quick do a very just bad shuffle and draw a card. Unfortunately, no Runic Engine at all from this, but we would still activate the Runic Fountain. We of course would set Rivalry of Warlords, and crazy. So they have the token on their board. So actually, on their draw phase, we would actually activate Rivalry, locking them into Fiends. So unless they're playing like Labyrinth, they're gonna have a hard time. But we would normal summon before we obviously ended turn. We would normal summon Redbeard just to give us more access into our extra deck on the next phase. So at the end of our turn, we're sitting on a Fiend token on their board for the draw phase Rivalry. We are sitting on Redbeard to further access our extra deck if they get anything in the graveyard, and we have an Ash in hand. We of course have the monster negate from Lice to be able to pitch the Bluebeard. Unfortunately, Bluebeard's effect would require us to discard the Ash Blossom, but depending on how confident we are, we would discard Ash, and then we would unfortunately draw into another Rivalry. So that would just be sad days and not worth the trade of Ash. But yeah, honestly, for a starting hand, that's not terrible. That's actually one of the more ideal boards, even though we didn't end on any sort of Runic cards. We would see Tip on the next one, so there is that. So that is the deck. I want to thank you all for watching this video. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Comment down below what your thoughts are on Runic Plunder Adventure. There's just a lot going on in this deck, and there's a lot of archetypes and stuff to really get a handle on and what's going on. Don't forget to leave like and subscribe. I think I already said that, but hit that bell button for notifications. I upload once a week, trying to go for twice a week, but we'll see. And with that, I'll see you all in the next video. Bye.